My favorite team that I love to talk junk about because I despise them. I hate the fan base with a passion, even though I don't like to say I hate people, but it's Philadelphia. Okay. This is one of the games I had trouble watching because my Sunday ticket just wanted to act stupid, and I really had no access to this game for the majority of the day. But I went back, done some research, and I really specifically had trouble just watching the second half because I was sitting there like, and I really strayed away from this game because I wanted to watch the Jackson Darts and other games of that nature. And I was sitting there, and I got away from this game for a little while, but I went back. I didn't know Philly played that bad in the second half on offense. That was pretty bad. Now let's go ahead and discuss this. The Philadelphia Eagles come away with the win as they always do. This team, and I'll dissect that later. Let's just get to the game. I'm starting to not understand the Philadelphia Eagles. And, Colin Cowherd on the Herd this morning, he brought up a super great analogy that I could really, really compare the Eagles to. But I'll save that after I get done with my take here. I'm starting to not understand the Eagles, and here's why. They feel like the Kansas City Chiefs of last year, and that's why I'm going to bring up the point that Colin Cowherd made. Colin Cowherd brought this up. I'm giving credit to where credit is due. Colin Cowherd was my source of information, and I came up with my own take, just taking that information with me. And it was a very fascinating take. Because last year, everybody got on the Chiefs for how they were winning games. With the blocked field goals, the interceptions. Something crazy and foolish would always happen when it relatively shouldn't have, and the Chiefs would come away with a victory. What about the Philadelphia Eagles this year? And I'm going to take it back to the very first game against the Dallas Cowboys. A very losable game. Jalen Hurts plays phenomenal. But offensively, his supporting cast done nothing. Saquon Barkley, done nothing. Wide receiver tandem, done nothing. What was the stat? I think they caught 7 balls between Dotson, Smith, and A.J. Brown that game against the Dallas Cowboys. All 3 of them caught 7 balls all night. It was the Jalen Hurts show. The defense, they were okay. They were getting absolutely dog-walked in the first half, but the second half, the lightning delay screwed everything up. That was their first game. Week 2, I cannot think off the top of my head who they played. Let me look it up right quick. I cannot think from the top of my head who they played. Kansas City. Jesus Christ. Okay, Kansas City. They didn't look phenomenal that game either. A.J. Brown still weren't getting touches like that. They didn't play as worse as they did, the very first game. They played better. But now let's take it back to last week. The first half, they had negative yardage on offense, in total offense. Saquon Barkley couldn't run the ball, couldn't pass the ball. And then what did they do in the second half? And we talked about it last week. They turned into the Super Bowl Eagles. Jalen Hurts stopped thinking. He finally stepped back into the pocket and threw the football to A.J. Brown. And A.J. Brown made you plays. And your defense rallies off that, comes up, makes some stops, and you force a game-blocking field goal attempt to win the game. You done it twice. So a lot, in the same case, in the same argument that people they made last year, a lot of luck component to that. Blocking field goals to win a game when you should have lost. Okay. What about yesterday? After a phenomenal first half. Phenomenal. You block a punt, Baker and them's first drive, you force them to punt, get a blocked punt, 7 points there. Just the Eagles are just getting, just playing complimentary football, in my opinion, just blocking punts and kicks. Okay, fine. Jalen Hurts is dealing, running fake tush pushes to Saquon Barkley. First half is phenomenal. What about the second half? Jalen Hurts passed. He was 0 for 8 in the second half throwing the football. Or 0 for 7, one of the two. For some reason, I didn't write it down. But I knew it was 0 for 7, 0 for 8, 1 of the 2. But I know this exact one that sticks out like a sore thumb. This stat sticks out like a sore thumb. Ladies and gentlemen, Jalen Hurts yesterday, offensively, had -1 yards in the second half. When you have an all-pro running back, all-pro wide receiver, one of the best wide receivers in the history of the franchise, 2 all-pros, on probably definitely 2 all-pros at the offensive line, but one of the best offensive lines in the league, an above-average tight end group, and you muster up -1 yards of offense in the second half. That cannot happen. And we know all the drama going on with A.J. Brown. I will save that for a separate show because I just wanted to save that for something else. But we know the drama that's going on with A.J. Brown. And A.J. Brown talked about it when Kevin Patullo, offensive coordinator, maybe they got a little used to Shane Steichen and Kellen Moore, the phenomenal play callers that they are. And then you come over to Kevin Patullo and, stuff like this happens. But Kevin Patullo's got to... Some's got to give. Back-to-back weeks, you are no-shows for a half of football. Majority of the teams who are able to muster up negative yardage in a half end up losing the football game. That's just a testament to how well your defense is. But it is not a recipe for success by any means. And I go back to my analogy with the Chiefs, because what happened to the Chiefs? That type of style of play that they were playing ended up running them down into the Super Bowl, and they got boat raced. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that could be 100% the case with the Eagles. The Eagles might actually turn it around. They might start playing a full 4 quarters of football altogether in all phases, from the offense specifically. This is more towards the offense, the defense, and the special teams. But as the Eagles are playing right now, look, you're 4-0, and you got to give credit where credit is due, and I gave them credit last week. They played phenomenal. When it feels like when Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni, whenever they need to make plays to win games, they make them. And I give Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts a lot of credit for that. I really do, even defensively. The Eagles have set this culture to where, by any means necessary, I just want to win. I respect it. I wish my team was like that. But in that same breath, we can also look in the mirror and have this separate take as well. Yes, you're winning, but at what cost? And is this really overshadowing issues that may cost us the ultimate goal in winning a Super Bowl? Because I promise you right now, the way you're playing football, do that in the playoffs, it's not working. You're not winning a Super Bowl this way. You're not going into Santa Clara Super Bowl. What is it? I don't even know what Super Bowl. Is this 60? I think this might be Super Bowl 60. You cannot go to the Super Bowl in 2026 in February and think you're going to go into that football game having negative yardage of offense in a half and expect to win the Super Bowl. It's not going to happen, because you're either going to play Patrick Mahomes again, and we know he's the granted you've already beat them, but we know the capabilities the Chiefs can have if they're fully healthy. What about the Buffalo Bills? What would Josh Allen do with that offense? Who knows? You just cannot, and we can even stay in the NFC. What if Jalen Hurts plays that brand of football for a half? What's going to happen? Look, I think the Eagles, and I know it may seem like I'm crapping on the Eagles, but let's just be honest here. If anybody is capable of turning the ship around, it's the Eagles and Nick Sirianni. They just do it. They're champions. And there's stuff with A.J. Brown not getting the ball. Look, nothing's going to happen with A.J. Brown. He's not getting, I don't want to get that deep into it. I want to save it for a later segment this week. But even with the distractions, they had the distractions last year with A.J. Brown. The Eagles can still win a Super Bowl. I still think the Eagles should be one of the 3, 4, 5 favorites to win the Super Bowl. top-heavy favorite. But the Eagles need to get it together on offense because they cannot play this way and expect to win. If it wasn't for a really questionable Baker Mayfield interception, that game could have been a loss. What about last week? If you don't block a field goal, it could have been a loss. It's the same thing we said about the Chiefs last year. You know, the Chiefs, they didn't look in the mirror and their issues. They did not care. They just said, look, we're winning games. But don't let that fool you into thinking that you're playing at a Super Bowl caliber level. You're not. You may be defensively because the defense was pretty phenomenal yesterday. You held Baker in check. You know, Baker Mayfield, so far this season, 3 games, 3 game-winning drives. You didn't allow that to happen yesterday. Quinyon Mitchell, from what I saw, stats-wise, had everybody on the island yesterday. They do have some questions on the back end at the safety position for me because that one ball that Emeka Mbuka called, I don't even know how he even got the ball. But the Eagles' defense is playing pretty well. But offensively, you have all that talent. It is inexcusable. Inexcusable, no matter the opponent, for you to do what you did in the second half and have negative yardage of offense. It's inexcusable. But if I believe in any team to turn the ship, I believe it's the Eagles. They've just set the culture that they could get this fixed. I just don't want them to do what the Chiefs did last year and just downplay everything and not look at your glaring issues, and it cost you a Super Bowl. That's pretty much it. Now for the Bucs, I mean, you had the costly fumble by Bucky Irvin. That's an anomaly. That normally don't happen. Baker didn't play horribly bad, but he didn't play great. He threw one bad interception in the end zone. He just tried to make a play, made too much happen. I know they probably would have loved to come away with a field goal there. But, yeah. And then the final drive just couldn't muster up anything. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I actually picked the Bucs to win this game because, you know, historically the Bucs have played very well against the Philadelphia Eagles. But this game, it didn't end up being the case. But I really think if they were to match up again, the Bucs will play a whole lot better, cleaner ball. Maybe the Eagles will too, and maybe the same result will still happen. But it was a one-score ball game. You know, Baker Mayfield and the guys had a chance. They had a game-winning drive. The Eagles played phenomenal defense, but it's more of the same that I'm talking about a while ago. What ifs? If the Eagles were to meet the Buccaneers in the playoffs, who knows what would happen? Would the Bucs play that sloppy and lose? Because we've not seen Baker and the Bucs make as many blatant and boneheaded and terrible turning the ball over like they did yesterday. And they could inevitably beat the Eagles by the way the Eagles played yesterday. And in the same lens, you could say, okay, well, what if the Eagles play like they did in the first half and play like that in the second half and not take the foot off the brakes? Something we could say. But it was a great game. It's just, y'all can see where I'm just trying to get y'all to think and just think about things from an outside lens, the what ifs. You know, it's a very interesting thing, and I thought I could bring that up.